I wasn't trying to be dramatic that night. Honestly, I just wanted to do something nice. Ethan had been so distant lately, distracted, short-tempered, barely present. I kept telling myself it was just stress, that work had him pulled in every direction. So, I thought, why not surprise him with his favorite dinner? Braised lamb, rosemary potatoes, that wine he always pretended not to love, just something that might soften the silence growing between us. I grabbed his car keys without thinking twice. My own car was low on gas, and his was right there. The light outside was warm and golden, that peaceful time of day when the world feels half asleep. I slipped into the driver's seat, humming to myself, and leaned over to the glove compartment. I just needed napkins, that's it. But when I opened it, something caught my eye, and everything shifted in an instant. It was a lipstick. Deep red, sleek tube. Not mine. I don't wear red, haven't since college. My heart didn't race, my face didn't flush. No, it was colder than that, like my blood forgot how to move. I turned it over in my hand, almost curious. It looked expensive, not the drugstore kind. This could mean nothing, I told myself. It could be anything. But something in me had already started unraveling, and I knew. I had to look closer. I sat there for a moment, just staring at it. The tube felt heavier than it should have, like it was carrying some kind of truth I wasn't ready to hold. I turned it slowly, examining the bottom for a clue. The shade was called Scarlet Spell. Cute. Bold. Definitely not me. I don't flirt with colors like that. And Ethan? He would have never bought something like this for me. He's never even noticed when I change my hair. Still, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just placed it gently on the passenger seat, like it might explode if I moved too fast. My hands shook a little as I started the engine. The drive to the store felt longer than usual. Every red light a chance to second-guess what I'd found. It doesn't mean anything yet, I kept repeating. But deep down, something ancient in me had already stirred awake. A kind of knowing only women carry in their bones. By the time I reached the parking lot, I had made a quiet decision. I wasn't going to accuse him. Not yet. If there was something to uncover, I'd find it, without him knowing I was looking. I've seen what happens when women confront too soon. They get gaslit, dismissed, made to feel crazy. No, I was going to stay calm, controlled, smiling even. And if he was lying to me, then he had no idea who he was dealing with. I walked through those store aisles like nothing was wrong. Tomatoes, garlic, rosemary, each item dropped into the basket like clockwork. But inside, my mind was weaving a web, replaying conversations, scanning for inconsistencies. I thought back to last Tuesday when he said he was working late, and how he came home smelling different. Not bad, just not like me. A scent I couldn't name, but now I wondered if it had a matching lipstick. At checkout, I smiled at the cashier, waved goodbye. On the surface, I was the same woman I'd always been, warm, patient, devoted. But something had shifted, quietly but permanently. That lipstick had cracked open a door I didn't even know existed. And whatever was behind it, I was ready to face it, on my terms. By the time I got home, Ethan was already back, in the shower, humming like nothing in the world could touch him. I placed the groceries on the counter, slow and deliberate, and pulled the lipstick from my purse. I turned it in my hand one more time, then tucked it in the drawer beneath the sink. It wasn't time to ask questions yet. No, first I needed answers. And I had a feeling they were closer than he thought. That night, while he showered, I moved like a ghost through the house. Quiet, unbothered, focused. I opened the bathroom drawer where I'd hidden it. The lipstick. I studied it under the warm kitchen light this time, like a detective studying a clue. The brand was luxury, high-end, the kind of thing someone wears when she wants to be noticed. And then I saw it. Tiny, elegant letters engraved on the gold rim. AM. My pulse quickened, but I stayed calm. Initials, I thought. Not mine, not anyone I knew. But maybe his, maybe hers. I turned it over again and again, like it might whisper something if I stared long enough. I thought about asking him right then, catching him off guard. But that's not how this would go. I needed more than a hunch. I needed proof. The kind you can't wiggle out of with lies or charm. The next morning, I kissed him on the cheek and wished him a good day. I packed his lunch, just like always. He smiled, said thank you, called me sweetheart, the usual script. But I noticed the new cologne. Not the one I gave him last Christmas. This one was sharper, muskier, seductive almost. I watched him leave like I always did, waving from the porch. But this time, I wasn't sending him off with love. I was sending him off with a question. Over the next few days, I became someone else entirely. Still me, but sharper, more alert. Like a hawk watching the ground for movement. I started paying attention to everything. The way he locked his phone screen when I walked by. How he flinched slightly when I mentioned plans for the weekend. And then came the shirt. A white button-down I was folding in the laundry room. Right on the collar, barely there. A soft smear of red. I held it close to the lipstick I'd hidden. Same tone, same shimmer. My stomach tightened, but I didn't cry. No tears, just facts. I bagged the shirt and put it away in the back of the closet. If he wanted to play games, I'd play better. No outbursts, no yelling. That's what they expect. Emotional chaos. But I was past that. I wanted him to feel safe, unbothered, maybe even smug. That's when they slip. I started checking his calendar, his call logs, even his gas receipts. He wasn't covering his tracks well. Thursday night meetings that ended too late for a quick dinner, but not late enough for exhaustion. Saturday errands that took 3 hours and came back with nothing but a bottle of wine and an empty smile. And through it all, I smiled too. Sweet, steady. The picture of a loving wife. But inside, I was already cooking something far more satisfying than dinner. I started testing little things. Nothing major, just nudges. I asked if he wanted to do a date night, watched him hesitate. I brought up an old friend of mine just to see if he'd mention this AM woman by accident. But he didn't flinch. He was too polished now, too rehearsed. The charm had returned. The smiles, the casual hand on my back as he passed by in the kitchen. Almost like he was trying to remind me how lucky I was. But I wasn't fooled. I was fascinated. The better he played the doting husband, the more I knew something was rotting underneath. And that rot had a name. I could feel it. He was hiding someone, and she didn't even know I existed yet. That's when it hit me. If he was lying to both of us, maybe it was time we met. But not in the way he'd expect. I stood in front of the mirror that evening, holding the lipstick like a key. I wasn't going to scream into the void or beg for truth. No, I was going to rewrite the script entirely. If Ethan wanted a performance, I'd give him one he'd never forget. And the first step? Figuring out exactly who AM really was. I didn't pull away. I leaned in. Hard. I became the kind of wife men brag about in office break rooms. Packed lunches with handwritten notes. Morning texts that said, "Thinking of you," with a heart emoji. I even complimented the shirts that still smelled like lies. And he lapped it up. Every smile I gave him felt like a little test. And he kept passing, convinced I was blind. He started relaxing again, like the air around him had cleared. The late nights returned, but so did the casual kisses. He laughed more, touched me more, probably thinking whatever distance had been between us had simply vanished. And maybe that's what made it all so delicious, knowing he thought he'd gotten away with it. That I was the same woman waiting by the door with a glass of wine and no questions. But behind the scenes, I was working. Quietly. Carefully. I booked a salon appointment under the name AM, just to see if anyone would blink. I created a fake profile with a different name, different face. Nothing flashy, just someone his type might follow. I started watching the women he liked, followed, interacted with. One stood out, beautiful, flirty, and very proud of her selfies, especially the ones taken in a car that looked a little too familiar. Her name was Ariana Morris, mid-30s, gorgeous but not in a polished way, more like she'd roll her eyes at compliments and still know exactly the effect she had. Her profile was public, which made things easier. I scrolled through her feed like I was flipping pages of a book I hadn't meant to open, but couldn't put down. And there it was, a photo of her in a passenger seat. Burgundy leather, same dash, same mirror charm Ethan bought in college. I zoomed in. No denying it. That was our car? My car, technically, the one I drove when he borrowed it for errands. She captioned it with something stupid like, "When Fridays feel like magic." I stared at the image for a long time, wondering if she knew. If she even cared, but judging by her smile, she didn't know I existed. Or worse, she knew and didn't see me as a threat. I checked her posts for patterns, time of day, locations, which ones he liked. I even traced back old check-ins to see if they overlapped with his supposed late meetings. They did. The timeline lined up like a puzzle he never thought I'd solve. And with every new detail I uncovered, the anger inside me simmered. Not explosive, not wild, just focused, measured. The kind of anger that plans things with linen napkins and candlelight. I started rehearsing the way I'd look at him, the way my hand would rest lightly on his, just like always. The small pauses in my sentences, carefully timed to seem adoring, not suspicious. I gave him no reason to question me, not even for a second. That was the key, to stay soft on the outside, while sharpening every instinct I had on the inside. He couldn't know I'd already found her. He couldn't suspect I'd been planning a meeting. I even played into his ego, told him he seemed lighter lately, more relaxed. He grinned, said work had been finally manageable again. I smiled right back, holding his gaze like I still believed every word he said. But inside I was already building the evening, the menu, the wine, the dress I'd wear. And I knew exactly how it would unfold. He'd come home to the scent of rosemary and garlic, expecting affection. He'd get something else entirely. I waited until everything was perfectly in place. The fake message sent from his phone to Ariana. The time, the date, the address, no detail left to chance. Because if he was going to lie to both of us, then the least I could do was set the table for the truth. And soon, very soon, they'd both be seated. I told him he deserved a special night. Just the two of us. "You've been working so hard," I said with a smile. "Let me spoil you a little." He looked surprised, flattered even. The kind of reaction that tells you everything about where their guilt sits. I lit the candles, set the table with the good dishes we only use for anniversaries, cooked every bite from scratch. His favorite meal, down to the garlic butter on the bread. He walked through the door like a man returning to safety. I greeted him with a kiss on the cheek, a glass of wine, and the softest version of my voice. "Dinner's almost ready," I said. He relaxed into the evening like it was exactly what he needed, and in a way, I guess it was, just not the way he thought. He asked what the occasion was. I shrugged. Love doesn't need a reason, right? He bought every second of it. Sat down, commented on the music. "You really went all out," he said, slicing into his food with a grin. I laughed lightly. "Of course, tonight's important." And just as he reached for his drink, right on cue, the doorbell rang. He froze, fork in midair. "Are you expecting someone?" he asked. "No," I said, with a smile so gentle it could cut glass. "But you are." He stood slowly, almost like his body was moving before his brain could catch up. I watched his back as he walked to the door, shoulders tightening, hesitation in every step. He opened it, and there she was, Ariana, in a fitted black dress, holding her purse with a confused little smile. "Hey," she said softly. "You told me to come." "You said you wanted me to meet someone." Her voice trailed off the second she saw me. I stayed seated, calm, composed, my wine glass in hand, the candlelight catching the rim just right. Ariana blinked, glanced back at Ethan, then back at me. Her eyes widened as the puzzle pieces snapped into place. "You must be Victoria," she said, voice tightening. I nodded. "And you must be AM." I motioned to the empty chair across from me. "I saved you a seat. I figured since you two share a car, you might as well share a meal." Ethan's face was a masterpiece of panic. He looked from me to her and back again, his mouth opening, then closing, like a fish pulled from water. This isn't what it looks like," he finally stammered. I tilted my head. "Oh, I think it's exactly what it looks like." My tone was soft, too soft, that kind of quiet that unsettles a man more than screaming ever could. I gestured to the wine. "Join us, Ethan. I wouldn't want you to miss your big moment." Ariana didn't sit. She stood frozen by the door, eyes darting between us, breathing shallow. I could see it on her face. That slow, creeping horror of realizing she hadn't been special. Just a piece in a story she didn't know had a leading lady. She clutched her purse a little tighter. "You never told me you were married," she whispered. Her voice cracked, but I didn't look at her. My eyes were locked on Ethan. He looked like he might throw up. "Victoria, he began, but I raised a hand. "Save it. You've said enough. To both of us." He tried to reach for me, some pathetic gesture of damage control. I leaned back in my chair. "I just wanted to see her face," I said, still calm. "To know who you thought was worth risking everything for." I turned to Ariana then, finally. "Now you know too. Hope he was worth it." Without another word, she turned and walked out, her heels clicking against the tile like punctuation marks. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, alive. Ethan stood there, lips parted, but I was already rising from my chair. I reached into the drawer by the table, pulled out a folder, and slid it toward him. "Dessert's off the menu tonight," I said, "but I do have something sweet for you." He didn't touch the folder, just stared at it like it might catch fire. Inside were the divorce papers, already signed on my end. Clean, unapologetic. I didn't need a scene or an explanation, just closure. "You'll need to vacate by the end of the week," I said calmly as I started collecting the plates. "The lease is in my name. Utilities too. I've already spoken to the landlord." He looked stunned, like he'd just realized the game was over and he wasn't holding any cards. He opened his mouth, probably to beg or lie or blame stress, they always do. But I didn't give him the space. "Don't," I said, not harshly. Just final. "You made choices, and now you get to live with them." He tried to follow me into the kitchen, but I stopped him with just a glance. That was all it took now. One look. Because the power had shifted, and we both knew it. Later that night, I heard him crying in the guest room. I didn't flinch. Not out of cruelty, just peace. The kind of peace that comes when a storm finally stops pretending it's just rain. I sipped my tea, turned the page of my book, and let the silence wash over me like a baptism. I was no longer the woman waiting for his attention. I was the woman who'd taken her life back and set it gently on fire to keep herself warm. The next morning, I changed the locks, not out of spite, out of necessity. I needed to reclaim every inch of space he'd polluted with lies. I boxed up his things with the same care I once folded his shirts. Labels, neat piles, taped shut. I didn't smash anything, didn't burn a single photo. I wasn't erasing the past, I was simply refusing to let it weigh me down. And every box by the door felt like a small exhale I'd been holding for years. I blocked his number after he sent the 6th message in 2 hours. Long apologies, old photos, half-written memories meant to make me soften. But I didn't soften. I'd done enough soft. I left the messages unread, deleted his contact, and turned my phone face down. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was clean, untouched. It felt like the first white page of a brand new book, and for once I didn't need anyone else to help me write it. In the days that followed, I didn't cry, I didn't drink, I didn't spiral. I made my coffee each morning, walked barefoot through the living room, opened the windows wide. The air felt lighter. The mirrors looked kinder. There was no one left to perform for, no one to second guess. I had given him every chance to be honest, and he chose secrets. So, I chose myself. A few weeks later, I took the car for a long drive, the same one he used to borrow when he said he needed space. Only this time, the seats were clean. The glove compartment was organized, and inside, I placed a single lipstick. Mine. A soft mauve with my initials carved into the gold cap. Not a message to him, just a reminder to myself that I could take back what was mine, piece by piece, that I was no longer in the passenger seat of my own life. I pulled over at our favorite overlook, or at least it used to be. Watched the sky stretch wide and unapologetic, just like I wanted to be. I took a breath, deep and full, without the weight of wondering who he was texting or what excuse I'd be fed next. There was nothing left to uncover. No more lies hiding in plain sight. Only the quiet hum of freedom and the strange beauty of a chapter finally closed. As I turned the key in the ignition, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes looked steady. My mouth? Almost smiling. I leaned back in the seat and whispered, "If you leave proof of your betrayal, I'll leave a mark you'll never forget." Then I drove off, not running, not escaping, just moving forward with both hands on the wheel.